For equal liberty among all peaceable individuals and against anything that obstructs it. This is Thinking Liberty.
That is a good
There we
opening.
go.
I like
It's
that.
Tuesday, February 15th, 2011, and we're live on thinkingliberty.net. We've also got some new setup here where we can actually hear what's going on. I'm not really... It's kind of weird because it sounds like it's coming from inside my head when I talk still.
It's weird, isn't it? So I'm listening to my own voice, and it's kind of reverberating, and so it's there's a stereo effect going on.
And now when I'm looking at you, like, I see your lips move, but when I hear you talking,
Exactly.
it sounds like you're a lot closer than you actually are.
Yeah,
I'm
and
talking
we've
right
got-
into your ear.
We've got the volume controls on the monitor amplifier, so if it doesn't sound loud enough, just go over and turn it up for yours, but make sure you turn up the right one.
If it doesn't sound loud enough, yell more.
Yeah, so this new equipment is kind of... Now, we're getting used to it. It's just we had to let it roll. Got to let it roll. Can you hear everything, Bosco?
I can hear everything. I like how
Excellent.
it's like we've got this headphone thing in the middle of the table, like it's a hookah or something.
Yeah.
And like everybody's jacking in currently, all around it.
Like
Getting that
Futurama.
smoke in my ears here.
Everything is like Futurama.
I got an extra set of headphones if anybody needs it too.
What kind of headphones? They look like that?
Yeah, like this.
Okay, then you should probably give those to him.
All right, hold on.
All right. So we've got an interactive broadcast. You can interact with us by going to thinkingliberty.net and checking out the stuff on the contact area of the website.
All right, you'll find that our email here. We have email contact at thinkingliberty.net. We have our Twitter. You can follow us on our Twitter feed at Thinking Liberty. That's Think and Liberty. And Facebook, just look for Thinking Liberty. Free agents, FR33 agents, of course. Just look for Thinking Liberty's group. Skype, Thinking Liberty. And we have a phone number as well, which is 919-88...
No go.
No go.
That's correct. 919-88-NO-GOV or 919-886-6468. So feel free to call us anytime you like.
And we have the chat room, which
that's right.
already has some chatting going on.
Hold on,
in
you
the
can
room.
call us anytime you like, but the only time we're going to answer is between 8 and 10 on Tuesdays.
Yeah, and of course you should leave a message. I don't know. It might be funny.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. I do have to admit, I contact our Skype thing whenever I want to test out my own setup. That's personally what I do.
Okay, so you have found another use for this show. All right, so we're going to jump right in. We got some news here, but first let's introduce everyone. I'm Darian. We've got Tennyson over there.
Yo.
And then Bosco.
Hello.
And Bile, as usual, with like 5 computers around him. Actually, there's 2, but, you know.
Yeah, this is like Thinking Liberty with 5 times the cables now. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we need to get like an image of this because we've got what the computer that's recording the show, we've got the computer that's streaming the show, we've got the computer hooked up to the TV so everyone can see what the chat room's doing.
Yeah.
I've got my personal computer and my Android cell phone sitting next to me, and we've got all the microphones going out to everyone, and then we have the cable going out to the monitor amplifier, which is then going to headphones for everyone sitting here.
And I have my computer open here, and I have my phone next to it, and so there's a computer everywhere.
And one of these cables goes to Darian's external pacemaker, but we don't know which one.
I thought you were going to say my testicles.
Yes.
So let's
that
not
too.
step on any of these.
I guess that would be my external pacemaker.
I actually got a set of wireless headphones at home too that I didn't even think of. Those could cause some like crazy awesome interference. I bet that might be
Yeah,
fun.
Maybe.
Yeah, so...
Bluetooth?
No.
Oh, cool.
No.
All right, so we're
Ancient.
here in the Thinking Liberty studio, which is also Bile's living room, and it's a good time. So
Wow, way to bring everything down.
I brought it. That's what I do.
This is a good living room. Shut up.
Dude, we're in a construction site somewhere nearby, and it's still pretty cold outside, but it's not as cold as it was before.
Yeah, we record from a bunker. Did you forget that? Powered
Yes.
by fire.
Bunker
Powered by fire?
Powered by fire. Yep.
And
firepower.
Not like steam that's
No.
no.
The actual fire.
Just fire?
Just
Okay.
fire.
Yes.
That's
So
good.
what powers the fire?
Love.
Can't argue.
Name.
All right, so let's get into the show. We've got some WikiLeaks news. We talk about WikiLeaks off and on.
Yes.
By the way, we're gonna have Stefan Kinsella in here talking about IP. He's not gonna be in here, but he's gonna be on here.
So he's
on
going to
the
be debating
microphone.
somebody, right?
No, we ended up we changed that.
Okay.
the reason we changed the debate thing is because basically we contacted him, or I contacted him. I was like, hey, would you like to debate somebody? And he was like, yeah, I'd like to debate somebody, assuming they know something of what they're talking about. And then I realized the person I had in mind doesn't know anything about anything. Like I couldn't think of a topic that the person I wanted Mr. Kinsella to debate would know anything about. The guy is semi-literate. Not Kinsella, the guy that I want him to debate is semi-literate.
He knows
So I'm like,
about getting on the Tonight Show.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, this would just be a slaughter. So no.
Okay, eventually I'm going to have to set up a debate between Kinsella and I can't remember his name now, but yeah, I'll find. He talked at the Students for Liberty thing at Columbia this year. You remember? Richard Epstein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Richard Epstein was a strong defender of intellectual property and not for any reasons of justice at all. So it's more like a total utilitarian thing, and I think that he would still not win that argument because, well, Kinsella will probably.
That sounds like that would be an intelligent debate, though.
Yes,
like,
it would.
The debate I was setting up would be like Stephen Kinsella being like, okay, so, why do you think IP is important? And the other guy would have been like, and Kinsella would have been like, you're not making any sense. He'd be like, and then we would have had to like hang up on him. It would have been bad.
That sounds fantastic through the headset, by the way.
So, yeah, Kinsella would have come up with cogent points, debating actual facts and things like that.
And this other guy doesn't know what cogent
yeah.
means.
And the other person would say, no, you're wrong.
You are wrong, sir.
right.
You're wrong.
All right, so we'll have Stefan on the line later. But
gonna be
first,
fun.
some WikiLeaks news. A February 9th report on antiwar.com says, quote, WikiLeaks cables, including 07 Cairo 3348, released today by the Daily Telegraph, detail the Bush and Obama administrations were providing training to Egypt's secret police, the SSIS, which cables and human rights NGOs have repeatedly cited for routine torture of detainees.
That's what I said in my email. I was like, you wanted the best, you got the best at torturing, the FBI.
There you go. Exporting democracy, apparently. That's how they do it.
The guy I work with who's like a hardcore Tea Partier, who actually told me, by the way, that the things going on in Egypt were inspired by the Tea Party. Those were his exact words. He said they saw what was going on over here and realized they could change their government.
What?
Trust me, this is this guy's argument. But anyway, he actually brought up the point. He was like, you do realize who trained the secret police? And I was like, yeah, I realize it. I'm amazed that you realize it. He was like, yeah, it was the FBI. I'm like, oh.
He's proud of the fact, apparently.
I don't know what's up with that, but he was telling me all about it, and he's like, yeah, they're trained over here, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's useful information coming from you.
So bringing up the 2 points: one, that the people who have been torturing them for this long have been trained by your Americans who you keep cheering on, and two, that the dictator who'd been torturing them for decades was propped up by your American government. Neither of this seems to affect your outlook on the world.
No, not much changes his outlook on the world.
So no, every night's the same. So today's like tomorrow night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing, it goes to the heart of how U.S. power is projected around the world. I mean, it's good for the United States government and, whatever cronies or people that they're in with to have this particular regime, and however we can prop it up. All right, well, let's do that. And I think it's good to see that WikiLeaks is still it's trickling out some news. So that's good.
I'm sorry, you said trickling out.
I know. I giggled at that too, but I giggled internally, unlike you.
Oh, all right, yeah. Sorry.
So trickling wiki. Go ahead.
All right, so Trickly Leaks. I'm sure probably some people have heard of the plot to attack WikiLeaks. So it was uncovered by hackers from Anonymous. But some of the details of what they found when they acquired the emails of a company that said they were going to go after Anonymous.
What was the name of that company again? It was something Henry.
It is HB Gary Federal.
Gary, yeah, I know it was like a first name.
So it included proposals to undermine journalist Glenn Greenwald, including a line that was something like, a lot of these people have liberal ideas, but they'll respond to professional. I can't remember exactly how. It's basically like saying like, if he knows his job is on the line, he'll cave in. That's basically the gist of what they were saying. So the Guardian today has an article which says, quote, The hacker collective Anonymous claims to have unearthed proposals by a consortium of U.S. security firms to attack WikiLeaks ahead of reportedly planned disclosures about the Bank of America. Leaked emails apparently suggest that 3 private security firms, HB Gary Federal, Palantir Technologies, and Barico Technologies, pitched a plan to undermine the whistleblower's site to a law firm which has represented the Bank of America. BOA, the largest U.S. bank, is thought to be the next target of WikiLeaks releases.
Good times. There's another good article when you're talking about HB Gary about, what was that guy's name? Aaron Barr, right? About him specifically. What's the name of the article? It's like how somebody unearthed some members of Anonymous and paid a dear price for it or something like that. But it really details just how nuts that particular guy was.
And where can you find that?
Who did it? What did
Ars Technica.
Ars Technica.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they had a follow-up too, and both are excellent articles.
Haven't read the follow-up. I mean, the first one's like 3 pages, so it took me like 2 days to read it. But, the second one, maybe it's shorter. Maybe I'll be able to read that in a day and a half.
I only skimmed it, but both very good. ArsTechnica.com.
Yeah, it's nice because it kind of outlines how a lot of the attack and stuff was really just driven by this dude who was nuts and really thought that his research on how you can connect people via social networks and determine who people are was good.
That part of it was interesting because I think there's certainly merit there, but the article goes on and gives you like personal quips from emails and stuff, and he's very contradictory. Like over and over again, he says one thing and then like the complete opposite with regards to that particular subject. It's just like, well, I sympathize with a lot of what these guys are doing, but they're immature, so they need to be blown away.
Yeah, I mean, he was like kind of on board with the whole thing up until
the cables.
Yeah, up until the cables. Then he was like, oh well, no, this is no good.
Yeah, it sounds like he really wanted to get in that huge security industrial complex. There's money in that, and
a lot of money
I
there,
need to get that.
But it was more than that. Like he was even just driven by his own sense of how awesome he was. It seems.
Yeah,
he's like, all these assumptions I'm making are sound, and the people around him are like, no, they're really not.
Yeah, as a software developer, the responses that they were claiming that his developer said to him is exactly what I'd be saying too. Like, no, you can't say this is like 90% because it's clearly not that good.
So it was good. Another good one, also talking about WikiLeaks, is Hillary Clinton and what she was saying today about how important it is to have an open and free internet. And
wow,
then
that's amazing.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, what about WikiLeaks? And she's like, well, that's criminal. And
okay.
That's basically her response. And she was saying, well, but that's those are stolen documents that you're talking about.
You have the freedom to do whatever you want as long as I say you can.
Yeah.
If you do anything that I say isn't okay, then you're a criminal.
Right. You have the freedom to do whatever I say.
She's taking a lot of heat for it, too. And on top of that, when you play as the Democrats in NBA Jam, her character can't block worth a darn. Like, she will just get crushed by somebody like Stoudemire or anybody like that will crush Hillary.
Is there an Assange character in NBA
Oh,
Jam?
I wish. Dude, I would have bought like 50 copies of the game and just given them to my friends.
It's going to be an online patch eventually. You got WikiLeaks coming in there.
That would be fantastic.
And like his partner should just be that WikiLeaks logo of like the globe like melting into the
constant alley-oop. It just hovers above the court and just sits there and cherry picks and waits till you hit it with a pass and then just an alley-oop.
Yeah, what's that thing called again? Sand timer.
So in other WikiLeaks news, attorney Alan Dershowitz joined the WikiLeaks defense team.
Nice.
Basically saying on civil liberties grounds. Now, Dershowitz is a staunch supporter of the Israeli government, and he also advocated the use of torture following the September 11th attacks.
Indeed.
So it's kind of interesting that he's on there. It sounds like has this very specific notion of civil liberties and what free speech should be, and he wants to be involved in making that law. But I mean, do you think that brings up issues of WikiLeaks credibility or anything that this guy's involved with them?
No, not really. I mean, Dershowitz is a defense lawyer, and he's not the best person in the world, but defense lawyers aren't uniformly the best people in the world, but they do perform their services for people who they think need them or deserve them. So
Yeah, I'm kind of with that. I say take what you can get. I mean, go with people as long as they're going your way, and then don't tolerate it if people do things that you disagree with.
Right.
Don't make it unclear that you disagree with those things that people do, but I mean, if they're going your way, go with them. Reminds me of the whole should Ron Paul accept money from Stormfront debate.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, hey, money's money. It doesn't mean he should change what he says.
If they start trying to use you as something for their own cause rather than the other way around, then that's a problem. So, like, if Dershowitz starts trying to say WikiLeaks is supporting his particular causes, then that's probably not going to be true, no matter what happens. But
Well,
if Dershowitz is supporting WikiLeaks, then WikiLeaks is being supported by
Well,
Dershowitz.
there's also, I think the issue is brought up, depending on what cables are brought out and what they emphasize is Dershowitz as an extreme supporter of the Israeli government going to try to exert some leverage, I'll help you out, but, don't put out this cable or this cable. What do you guys think?
Well, let him try. It's not going to happen. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing. Don't do it, but he can ask.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that there's that big of a risk of that. People have said that WikiLeaks has gone light on Israel, but you gotta realize what they're releasing is A, not the highest level of classification, and B, the U.S. government's perspective, and the U.S. government is like Israel is BFFs with them. And also, if you go to websites like WLCentral.org and search some of the WikiLeaks stuff, you'll find things on there about, say, the Israeli invasion of Gaza and things like that don't present the Israeli government in a favorable light.
that's fine.
I think Israel's, as far as leaks, has got its hands full with those leaked PLO documents now.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, the
I mean, they don't.
Palestine Papers.
I would say that they cause more of an issue for the PLO, but I mean, that ends up being an issue for Israel.
Yeah, for the Israeli government has to have some credibility in that they're really doing something about the problem that they've taxed their people in such a way for. It's not just that we're actually partners with these supposed enemies and they're doing things according to our bidding, which would make things seem very, very strange to people who are going to be reading these
imagine
radio
that.
cables. Like what?
Yeah, you create conflict and extort money from people. This is a great idea.
It's a pretty good one.
We should do this.
Let's call it government.
Let's go to government.
Let's go to Grafton with that.
Let's
So,
go to Grafton with this.
yeah, so
Hey, Grafton, if we got something for you.
it's like, those guys over in another
Dude, I
town.
heard the people from Keene want to beat all of you up for protection. I'm
That's
going to
true.
tax you.
I heard Hannah was about to bomb this entire place.
So,
And she could do it in a half hour.
speaking of Grafton, the Liberty Forum alternative, the Alt Expo, is
Oh,
going
yeah.
to be in Grafton, right?
Nice. I'm unaware.
Oh,
Sorry.
if you go to what's the event called on Facebook? It's like the
But Agora IO?
no, it's the Liberty Peace Gathering in New Hampshire. I don't know. If you look at it, just it should be on Alt Expo or something. Basically, February 26th, the weekend that Liberty Forum is going to be, there's going to be a Alt Expo type event in Grafton.
Cool. You know where it's going to be in Grafton?
I think it's going to be in the Peaceful Assembly Church.
Oh, okay. That's a nice church.
Not
That's
sure.
that's a nice. Well, Grafton's a nice area in general. By the way, somebody's running for. If you want to look into it, somebody's running for police chief in Grafton
Yeah.
right now, and they're trying to raise money. Something which I wholeheartedly support, and I realize that may make me unpopular. But yes, somebody is running for police chief. You might want to look into that. Somebody. I forget the guy's
Could
name.
be you?
No, not me.
Okay. Should be you.
Somebody who hopefully won't enforce much, if anything.
So it should be you.
So-
It should be me.
There you go.
So they're running on a non-enforcement
Ticket?
platform.
Yes.
Instead of a law enforcement platform, it's a non-enforcement platform.
Well, maybe a public safety platform. Imagine a police force that involved themselves with public
That
safety.
would be crazy.
That'd be like the committees of public safety that existed before the Revolution or during the Revolutionary era. But not the committees of public safety that existed in the Revolutionary era of France. I mean, in the United States, because that's a whole other thing over in France. Yeah, but I was thinking of Agora IO. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah. There should be this Facebook page, a website, Agora.io. That's going to be in March, though.
Yeah, George Donnelly wrote me a letter about that, and he said that but there's going to be a slot in there. There's like different slots for people to do things or whatever want, and they could put anything they want up on the air, talk about it, put things up. We getting a phone call?
All right, so we're gonna actually head to break, and then we're gonna get Stefan Kinsella on. He's gonna talk about intellectual property,
Okay.
IP, as some people refer to it as,
Yeah,
not to
with-
be confused
not
with
freely?
IP freely.
There you go.
So he's gonna talk about us talk
about
to
us
us about why IP should be freely. All right, so let's head out on break, and we'll be back in just a short time. Stay tuned. ThinkingLiberty.net.
Got it.
You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a handbag. And you definitely wouldn't take an orphan's gold teeth. So why do you insist on stealing people's mind fruit? Every time you implement something somebody has already thought of, you're stealing mind fruit. Every time you think of something that somebody's already thought of, you're stealing even more mind fruit. So please, check all your thoughts with the Department of Thoughts, and everything you create with the Department of Inventions, so we can help prevent this most egregious theft of a highly tangible item, mind fruit.
It's time to live free and chew bubblegum, and you're listening to ThinkingLiberty.net.
That was live free and chew bubblegum, huh?
Yeah, I've got this weird echo on my...
Yeah, it picked up an echo now too, but it's okay.
Yeah, I didn't expect any chew bubblegum part of that whole intro, but whatever you like. You know, it feels good, do it.
Well, I was okay. Now my headphones are fine. I was listening to that or watching that Duke Nukem video on the ventral harassment. So, but anyway, we've got a great guest on the Skype with us, and his name
Skype
is Stefan Kinsella. Stefan, how you doing?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm Tennyson. All right, that's
I'm Bosco.
That's Bosco,
And I'm Darian.
and I'm Bile.
And Bile.
There we go. All right, so what are we even going to be talking? We're going to be talking about obviously IP stuff, but because that's your specialty now.
All right, Seven, why don't you give a quick introduction for our listeners who might not be familiar with you or your works?
Yeah, good.
I'm in Houston. I'm a Southerner. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a senior fellow of Mises Institute, and I write a lot of articles and books on legal topics, and also I'm the editor of Libertarian Papers, one of the journals of the Mises Institute. And I write a lot on libertarian legal theory, rights theory, and lately intellectual property, in part because I'm a practicing patent attorney and know a good deal about it and have formed a lot of opinions about it over the last 18 years that I've been practicing in this area.
Okay, well, for our listeners who aren't too familiar with the topic of IP, when somebody says IP, intellectual property, what are they talking about?
Primarily patent and copyright. Patent covers inventions. Copyright covers property rights in artistic or creative works like novels and songs and software.
Okay, and the I guess the typical discussion is those things, as people view them, exist to protect the artist or the inventor in that case. What would you say you follow with the typical idea there, or do you have a different idea than what most have, or where do you fit in there?
Well, I think that the primary approach to this is sort of changing, as you see with the rise of piracy and even pro-piracy sentiment, and the sort of increasing questioning among both left libertarian types and other types, and as well as some libertarians about the validity of intellectual property law. I mean, if you want me to give you a quick summary, here's what I think happened. The United States was founded. They incorporated a copyright and a patent clause in the Constitution, partly for utilitarian reasons. Like they thought, well, there's these sort of laws kind of forming in Europe and England right now, trying to give some protection to inventors and artists and authors. So we're going to put something like that in the Constitution. So it was sort of part of the fabric of our Constitution since the beginning. It was never regarded as a natural right. It was sort of, like a utilitarian thing to encourage innovation and creativity. So everyone has taken for granted that it's part and part of the fabric of a property rights type system. So, Ayn Rand and libertarians come along and they start thinking, well, America's the most libertarian country. So if you're in favor of property rights, you're in favor of intellectual property rights, of course. That's part and parcel of the property rights fabric. But in the last, 3, 4, 5 centuries, people have increasingly begun to question this. I was a patent attorney. I still am a patent attorney.
Centuries or decades?
I'm saying decade. In the last, several decades, it's been heavily questioned. Increasingly in the last, 2 or 3 decades. But even since the early, about 100 years ago, there was the periodical Liberty by Benjamin Tucker, and they were questioning it even back then. But in our modern sort of libertarian framework, most of the modern radical libertarians, even those who are not leftist and opposed to property rights, are questioning whether patent and copyright, which are basically monopoly privileges granted by the state, whether they are really property rights just because the government calls them property rights.
Okay, so if the original utilitarian reasons for which these were put into the Constitution, is there any questioning going on there whether or not that makes sense? I mean, the idea that it protects the artist, or it allows the artist to benefit from their work, and innovation would stagnate without it. Is there any research going on as to whether or not that's actually the case?
Well, there's been a lot of research about it. I mean, there's basically been continual research about it in the last century. So basically, let me give you a quick history. What happened was you had these monarchs who were granting monopoly privileges to favored, court cronies. I'll give you the monopoly on making horseshoes in this town in exchange for, loyalty. It wasn't because they were an inventor, just because I'll give you a monopoly and you're the only one who can do this. So that's how patents actually got their start. It was a letter patent. And then copyright was initiated because the government and the church were very concerned about the advent of the printing press and the ability of people to start printing works without government control, without government approval. So the government imposed all these controls in the name of copyright, on what could be printed. So it was basically censorship. So the origin of patent and copyright is in government favoritism, protectionism, mercantilism, censorship, and control of thought. And then, as we became more democratic, we sort of democratized these things. And then when America was founded, we put them in the Constitution because we thought, well, hey, maybe we can encourage innovation and novels and things like this with these things. But, it was just like a hunch. At best, it was a hunch by the founders that we might need this. So, in fact, the Constitution doesn't require these laws. It just authorizes Congress to pass these laws if it thinks it can use them to encourage innovation in science and things like this. But all of the studies that have been done that I have seen almost unanimously conclude that, well, they can't prove that that copyright and patent induce a net amount of innovation or creativity, or that they actually reduce the total amount of innovation or creativity because of a variety of negative effects of these laws.
Okay, I have a question. So, how does one argue against intellectual property and IP yet maintain the position of a patent lawyer? Or, I mean, how do you reconcile that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I came to become, I'm a libertarian, and so, to be honest, it never was and still is not my main interest, patent law. But because I was practicing it, because it was a good career to go into because of my background, I kept wondering about how we can justify this law, because Ayn Rand and others had come up with sort of shaky justifications for it, and they never made sense to me. So I always assumed it was valid. It's in the Constitution. Ayn Rand was in favor of it. It's considered to be part of property rights. So I kept searching for a way to justify it. And because I practice it, I was motivated to look into it. And finally, my looking into it led me to come to my current conclusions, which is that it's completely illegitimate and unlibertarian. Oh. Now, how can I practice patent law and do it? Well, I regard myself as sort of like a tax attorney, imagine a libertarian tax attorney. So you think there should be no income tax code and no income tax system, but as long as there is, your job is to defend people from the system. So a patent attorney can help companies defend themselves from patent lawsuits and claims, which is part of what I've done. And you can also acquire patents which are useful for defensive purposes. I do not and will not participate in asserting a patent against an innocent company, but I would not hesitate to use a patent in my arsenal of my company to defend myself if I were sued for patent infringement. So this is the primary purpose of patents nowadays. You have these companies acquiring patents primarily to prevent themselves from being sued.
Right.
So you have all these salaries of myself and patent attorney fees and it's insurance, et cetera, being wasted on acquiring patents which are used just to prevent companies from suing each other so that they can just compete with each other.
Yeah, they have lots of patent trolls out there, and everybody buys up other companies just to get at their patents that they may have had in order to get strategic leverage over other companies in certain industries or potential industries that they may enter into, like between Apple and HP and all the other lawsuits that are happening right now.
That's correct. Now, patent trolls are a special case. Patent trolls are a little bit harder to defend against because they actually usually don't make anything. So it's less likely that they would be infringing one of, say, my company's patents. So if they sue me, I have less I can countersue them for. Now, I'm not a big opponent of patent trolls. I mean, patent trolls are just a result of the patent system.
Right.
Criticizing patent trolls is like criticizing people who take welfare or Social Security. I mean, it's like, if the government puts out a big pig trough and says, come and get it, and then you criticize the pigs for coming and munching at the trough, it makes no sense. You shouldn't put the trough out. You shouldn't steal the money to put in the trough in the first place. So if you have a patent system, you will have patent trolls.
What exactly is a patent troll for people who aren't familiar with the term?
Good question.
Okay, I can define that. So that's a derogative or pejorative term that has arisen in the last 5 or 10 years to describe a company that asserts a patent that they own that they do not that doesn't cover a product or technology that they actually sell. So there's this bizarre idea that, which is just totally misplaced, that the patent system was designed to protect your own product. Well, of course it's not. The patent system is designed to protect the invention that you file an application for. So the patent system explicitly permits you to file a piece of paper with the patent office, a patent application, and you do not have to have a working model of the invention. You don't ever have to I mean, literally, you could wake up one morning, have a brainstorm, sit down and jot something down in 5 minutes on your computer, and have a patent attorney clean it up and just file it. And that is called what's a constructive reduction to practice. So in other words, you're supposed to reduce it to practice, which means make a working model. But if you don't do it, when you file this piece of paper with the patent office, that counts as a substitute for that. So you could basically just have all these ideas, which may not work in practice and which may not be practicable or profitable. And so a patent troll is a company typically that buys up these patents that have accumulated. Now, if a patent is a property right, there's nothing wrong with selling it or buying it. So you'll have a company that will accumulate a group of patents in a given technology area. And then they become powerful because they have a lot of patents in an area, and they have the power to use the courts of the state to sue, to get money from, or to actually enjoin or stop their competitors. Actually, it's not even their competitors. It's just companies that they want to target.
Right.
And usually they would just want money from them. So you'll have a patent troll who will just have 100 patents or 500 patents in a portfolio, will just launch a lawsuit against some company, and this company gets they get a complaint, and they're accused of copying or stealing or using this company's patents, usually when they've never even heard of this company's patents, because most patent lawsuits have nothing to do with copying. Most patent lawsuits are suits by a patent holder against an innocent infringer who has independently invented their own idea, and it just happens to step on one of the steps of a patent claim buried in the millions of patents in the patent office. So basically, they just use it as an excuse to extort money from these companies. It's like a private tax.
Okay, so from how you're describing it, basically to summarize, it seems like the reason it was originally initiated was bad, and then it was put into the Constitution, not necessarily in a strict property rights way, like the way people think of it. It was placed in there as basically an option, and at the time, effectively an experiment. And a lot of bad stuff has arisen because of it. So if, let's say, tomorrow, by some magic, intellectual property law, pressing a button, yes, intellectual property law were to go away, and these protections and these things like this were to disappear, other than being out of a job, if you can use your crystal ball, what do you think would happen? What would be the effect on industry as we know it?
Okay, so that's a multifaceted question. Let me answer it a few ways. Number one, we couldn't abolish it right away for several reasons. Number one, there's too many corporate interests that would oppose it, but let's ignore that. Number two, there are several international treaty systems that the United States has pushed and has implemented and gotten in place, which would make it impossible for us to abolish our patent and copyright law in their current form without being in breach of international law. So basically, we cannot change these laws substantially without being international criminals. So it's almost impossible to do so. And yes, I agree that they were put in place for utilitarian reasons or prudential reasons, and not natural rights reasons, which is basically admitted by the original founders. Even John Locke acknowledged that intellectual property could not be justified by his sort of homesteading theory of property rights, which was the kind of the fundamental principle the founders relied on. But let's ignore all that, and let's say that we abolish patent and copyright law. Well, I wouldn't be out of a job right away because there's going to be a lot of cleanup for about 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years because of this big mess, just like there is in the Soviet Union after it collapsed, and like there may be in Egypt if it collapses. there's going to be a lot of a cleanup. And I think there would be a resort in a private system to using attorneys to have trade secrets and contract law and lots of other agreements, which, by the way, are prohibited by antitrust law now. So, in other words, you could imagine a free society where there's no state, or there's not a significant state regulation of what's going on. There's no patent law, no copyright law, but there's also no antitrust law. So I don't deny that there would be cartels and regional associations and groups that would try to form agreements to control content and things like this. This should be permitted as long as it's not a violation of anyone's property rights. But I don't think that they would be very successful in the long run. I think basically you would have to, as an entrepreneur, find a way to make a profit off of your service. And if that service involves a lot of intellectual content that can be easily copied, then it is your task to try to find a way to profit from it, despite the fact that it can be copied or emulated, etc. Remember, emulation and copying is what the market is all about, and is what human society is all about. There is nothing wrong with learning. There's nothing wrong with the accumulation of knowledge. There's nothing wrong with competition and with competitors emulating what you're doing that pleases the market and trying to do as good a job or a better job or halfway good a job as you're doing. So this is all part of the market, all part of freedom, all part of the society that we want to live in that is free. So let me give an example. Back in the 1950s, I mean, we all have these images of drive-in movie theaters, and we all think of them as having these little tiny speakers set beside each car. Now, this didn't start out this way. They started out with loudspeakers like movie theaters indoors have now. Well, they found out that there were people driving next door, sitting on the hills nearby or whatever, watching the movie and listening to it for free riders. Now, instead of going to the government and trying to get a law passed to say it is illegal to sit in your car on a public road or on your own property and watch what is being displayed on a nearby movie screen, what do? They use their entrepreneurial creativity to think of how can we try to internalize and capture some of the profit? How can we stop these free riders? So they said, well, let's spend a little bit of money, install these speakers, and people will drive their cars in, and then everyone sitting on the hills nearby won't be able to hear what's going on, and they'll have an incentive to come in and pay for the movie. So that's just a tiny example of what you have to do in the free market if you're an entrepreneur and you realize the fact that the value of what you produce is a combination of content, which can be easily replicated, and scarce resources.
So this is similar to this story that came out today that apparently Coca-Cola's secret recipe has been released, and as I understand, they didn't use any sort of copyright or whatnot to safeguard the secret, and it's been this recipe since like 1887 or something.
I didn't hear that story, but from what I've heard about Coca-Cola's a recipe for Coke is always given as the classic example of trade secret. So you asked me earlier what intellectual property was, and I mentioned patent and copyright, and those are the two big main and evil types of IP. The other two classic types are trademark and trade secret. Now, trademark is just a mark that you use that tells people who this product or service is coming from. So it's just an identification or communication thing. A trade secret is just something you keep secret. So it's just some formula or knowledge that you have that you don't reveal to the world that gives you a competitive advantage. So these are the four big types of IP law: patent, which is inventions; copyright, which is artistic or creative works; trademark, and trade secret. Okay, so the Coca-Cola formula probably would not be protectable by copyright because it's not creative. It wouldn't be protectable by patent because it's too simple. It's just a recipe for food. And it's not a trademark, although the symbol for Coca-Cola is a trademark. So they keep it secret. But from what I've read and studied, and I can't guarantee this, but you can check up on Snopes or Wikipedia, My understanding is that the Coca-Cola recipe is actually not secret. It's pretty well known around the world. It's just that other companies don't want to use it because they want to distinguish themselves by making their own drinks, like RC Cola or Pepsi Cola, or whatever. So this recent story you're talking about, I don't know anything about it. But the way trade secret law works is if you make reasonable steps to keep your trade secret, and it gets revealed, so long as it's not publicly revealed to the world at large, you can go to the court and ask a court of the state to issue an injunction against the people that have learned about it they shouldn't have, and you can tell them you can't tell anyone about this under penalty of going to jail, basically. So that's how trade secret law is enforced. So even trade secret law has questionably unlibertarian aspects.
So how do you think trade secrets would work in a libertarian society, or would there be an entirely different concept to go along with it?
I think it would be similar to what we have now, but I do think you wouldn't be able to rely on a court to issue an injunction against a third party who never had a contract with you. Now, you might be able to get such an injunction or some kind of penalty against a former employee who left. But I think what would happen is you would have companies that would make a strategic choice. They would say, I have a secret. Now, if I sell this product that embodies a secret, let's say you have a new mousetrap. You can't sell that mousetrap that has your new idea and keep it secret. Some secrets are revealed in the product themselves. So you have a choice to make. Do I keep it secret and be glad that I came up with some neat idea that no one can use except me? Or do I want to make a profit from it? But the price of doing that is I reveal it to the world. This is just the normal, choice every business faces all the time. So you would have some things being kept secret, like customer lists and maybe some internal procedures or processes. And if you want to sell a product that is a new product, of course you're going to reveal the secret because you want to trumpet that secret. You want to tell people, buy my new mousetrap. I have a new feature that is much better than my competitors. And this is the way the market works, right? You have one competitor leapfrogging above the other by improving upon what has been done before. And the public benefits from this, and everyone is always under an incentive to keep improving their products.
All right. For those just tuning in, you're listening to ThinkingLiberty.net. We're interviewing Stephan Kinsella about intellectual property. And Stephan, I have a question. We were talking we mentioned a lot about patents and a little bit on trade secrets. But I want to focus a little bit on copyright.
Sure.
It seems like that's kind of the area where a lot of people are coming into conflict with intellectual property law, with illegal downloading and file sharing. And as as a writer myself and familiar with kind of the mindset of writers, there's this fear of, I guess, other people profiting from your work when they shouldn't. So I guess I want to have your take on, I guess, file sharing and the mindset of a writer who wants to basically make money from their work and not from their perception get ripped off.
Well, okay, so I would look at it a few ways. Number one, as Cory Doctorow, who's a sort of quasi open source science fiction author, as he wrote in one of his interesting articles, the main problem that an author faces is not being pirated; it's obscurity. I mean, not everyone is Stephen King. So most authors are happy when their works are reproduced because it gets their name out there, it gets their reputation made, it gets people interested in them, etc. I mean, I write lots of blog posts and articles for Mises.org, etc. I don't get paid for that, so I'm happy when people copy it. Number two, some people do things for profit, but the fact that other people might profit from it doesn't necessarily threaten me. In other words, see, there's an implicit idea that by the way, let me just recommend, there is a really good podcast which I just blogged about yesterday on the Mises blog, which was the This Week in Law podcast, twit.tv. I think it's /twil, TWIL. It's the most recent episode. And Nina Paley, who's a friend of mine, who's an artist, was on there, and she was talking. And she's not really a libertarian type. She's kind of quasi lefty, but even she says like the problem with this Creative Commons mentality is that it's this non-commercial mentality. Like, oh, I'm okay with you copying my work if it's not for non-commercial purposes, but you can't do it for commercial purposes. Well, think about there's a couple of problems with that. Number one, it's really hard to distinguish between commercial and non-commercial. I mean, if I incorporate, one of your pictures into one of my blog posts on my blog, now my blog is primarily non-commercial, but I have Google AdSense revenue, okay, for ads. So is it commercial? I don't know. So I don't think that there's an objective distinction between commercial and non-commercial. And number two, what is wrong with other people wanting to make a profit off of what they do? In other words, artists are not opposed to money. They should have money. So we shouldn't try to penalize people from using our works just because they can make money off of it. It's not like it hurts us. And the other thing is, I think we have to distinguish between this idea of theft. So we are so used to thinking of our IP and our works as our property because the government has labeled it that way in the last 50 years for propaganda purposes. It never used to be called property. It used to be called monopoly. But it's labeled that way now because it has a propaganda purpose. It sort of sounds like it's something you own. So then when you say, well, someone is stealing your work, but that is what is, I believe, is an overuse of a metaphor. Because, if you take my car or my bicycle or my wallet, the reason that I object to it and I call it theft is because I don't have it anymore. I mean, you've taken it from me. But if you could somehow look at my car and just create a duplicate car in the blink of an eye in your driveway, I mean, would I really object to that in the same way? Would I call it theft? I mean, I still have my car, right? So the problem is when you copy a file, you don't really deprive the person you copied it from of their copy. So when you call it theft, it's like a dishonest or illegitimate argument because you're trying to fit it into the paradigm of theft of physical property, but the same negative consequences don't flow to the person you quote unquote stole from.
Okay, real quick, I want to get your take on the creator endorsed mark. I think I might have actually heard of it thanks to a post from you.
Yeah, that is that's an idea that was come up with by Carl Fogel, who is the guy who runs questioncopyright.org, which Nina Paley is affiliated with, and they are both on the board of advisors of my Center for the Study of Innovative Freedom, c4saf.org. And they're trying to find alternatives to the current state copyright kind of system. Now, and I'll explain it, but let me just say as a preface that I think that these kind of ideas are sort of doomed in the womb because people can rely on copyright now. So there's not much of an incentive to try to rely on these things because we do have copyright. But as an experimental idea of one kind of mechanism or social mechanism we can rely on or use in the absence of IP, it's a creative idea. And Nina Paley has a related idea, by the way, called copy heart. So the create endorsed mark is the idea that, look, let's imagine there's no copyright on a work, but you, as the author of the work, will agree to endorse the sale of the work by some seller, some authorized seller, and they can put on the work CE or creator endorsed. So the idea is that customers or fans of the author who want to buy this work, at least some of them would prefer to buy a CE endorsed mark because they would prefer their money. If they're going to buy a work, instead of buying a pirated copy of it, they would prefer to buy a copy where some of the profits go to the original author. So that is one idea of how creators could be rewarded to some extent for their creations absent copyright law.
Okay, I actually had a question on your mousetrap example, jumping back a little bit. But
Sure.
when somebody builds a better mousetrap, you basically said that there was two options. I see a third option. What if you went like the EULA route and you entered into a contract with everybody who purchased your mousetrap, basically saying that they're not going to disclose the secrets of how your mousetrap works?
I had a whole thing on a question on this as well, so it's a good thing you brought it up.
Yeah, is that feasible? Do you see something like that happening?
Okay, so, and this was Murray Rothbard started to address these issues in the Ethics of Liberty, and he basically came out against patent law as it currently exists. But he said, well, a variant of copyright law could exist by this contractual scheme that you're sort of, getting at here. The problem is, and I don't want to get too deep into legal theory, but in the law, we have rights that are called in personam versus in rem. That is, a right you can assert against another person, or a right that's a property right. In rem means a property right. So in personam is more a right that can be generated by a contract between people. But in rem means a right that's good against the whole world. And for anything like a patent-type system to exist, which is what you're talking about when you talk about trying to protect the inventive aspect of a new design of a mousetrap, you have to be able to stop everyone in the world, not just people you've made a contract with. So Rothbard's argument was this, and he was, I think, scrambling to try to find a way you could salvage part of patent law under the copyright aegis. So what he said was this: if you have a new mousetrap and you sell a physical copy of it to someone, you only sell that copy to them, but you don't sell to them the right to copy it. You keep that to yourself. So that if a third party sees it and learns of this new idea from it, they never got the right to replicate it from the original or from the purchaser. Now, the problem with this is it's sort of it goes into a confusion about the nature of property rights. It assumes that there is a property right in knowledge or information. But if you take the normal Rothbardian approach to property or libertarian approach to property, then what you would say is, as a person, you have the right to do whatever you want to do with your property, okay, as long as you don't commit aggression. You don't have to get permission from anyone to do anything you want with your property. So, I have the right to have a camping party with my son on my lawn tonight at midnight if I want to, with my own tent. But I don't have to find a right to have a camping party with my son. I can just do it because I own the lawn and I own the tent. I don't have to get permission from anybody. I can do it as long as I'm not infringing anyone's rights. Okay? So the idea that you can use this contractual approach that you sort of alluded to assumes that there's ownership of information. Because if there's not ownership of information, a third party who merely sees this mousetrap but has never signed a contract or never purchased the mousetrap, if he learns about it, he's free to use this information to do whatever he wants with his own property. This is how, life works. We learn things, and the knowledge that we acquire in different ways throughout life guides our actions, which means helps us determine what to do with things that we own. Okay? So basically the bottom line is, if the mousetrap seller could theoretically bind a given buyer of his mousetrap, even if he could do that, still third parties would learn about how this mousetrap is configured. And they are not bound by a contract. So this cannot ensnare them, which means other people will be free to make the mousetrap because they've learned about it. They can use this idea to configure their own property in the same way.
Okay. All right. So that was a good thing. It actually addressed the third-party thing. Now, I had a discussion with a guy a while back, and we were all talking about for example, downloading things from torrents that were actual torrents of cable television shows. And you're saying, like, well, it's a contractual agreement that the person makes with, say, HBO or whatever, and what about that contract thing? So my question would be libertarian replication of the IP system via contract, and what are the consequences for breach of contract in a libertarian system? Like, what could that be?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Let me say a couple things about that. Number one, it's hard to predict what a libertarian society would look like,
Right.
because right now everything we do is sort of hemmed in and influenced heavily by the existence of a sort of undergirding infrastructure of IP law. So everything we see now is heavily constrained by existing IP law. Absent that, I think it would be radically different. So you cannot take too many lessons from how it's done now. Number two, your question requires a in-depth analysis of libertarian contract theory.
Right.
And there's a lot of debate about this. There's debate about whether contract law can be enforced against the person of another person, whether there's inalienability or alienability, whether you can sell your body into slavery or
Right.
agree to being punished if you violate a right. Now, my personal view, and I have reasons for this, my personal view is the following. I follow the Evers-Rothbard title transfer theory of contract, which is that contract is merely the ability to assign title to things that you own to other people. And you can put conditions on it or whatever. So it's just exchanges of title to property. And that there's also, you cannot agree to be physically punished on your body in the future unless you commit aggression.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's my approach to it. So I think what would happen is you might have these cartels and these music companies try to get these agreements put in place where everyone agrees to them or a large number of people agree to them. You might have an iTunes or a Netflix or a cable TV company or even a movie theater. If you go see a movie, you buy a $8 ticket for a movie, and you have to sign a little thing
$8.
saying,
Wow, it's cheap
Well,
out there.
whatever they are now. I'm discounting it because I've been seeing 3D lately. I guess it's $16 lately. All right, $12 movie ticket. And, by buying this movie ticket, you agree to opt into this entire intellectual property contractual regime, which says that in the future, for the rest of your life, if you ever pirate a movie, you're going to be, sued for $10,000, et cetera. Now, I don't deny that there would be some motivation for some of these content creators to try something like that, but I don't think they would be successful at all. I think they would be laughed at, they'd be a joke, and people would not patronize them. And I think there's good arguments that these contracts would not be enforceable in the first place.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah. So
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's a non-starter. I don't think it's going to work. I think that basically people have to accept the fact that now this gets into Austrian economics and libertarian theory a little bit, but I think the way you have to conceptualize it is this, and it's not that really hard to understand. Human action, every human action that we all perform, whether it's entrepreneurial or personal or private or whatever, no matter how you generalize it, is the use of means to change the state of affairs that would otherwise happen. So in other words, every human action uses scarce resources to try to change what's going to happen. But what you decide to do and what you choose to try to aim at is guided by knowledge that's in your head. So you have to distinguish the role of scarce resources in human action and knowledge or information. Now, scarce resources are things that you use to accomplish things that you interact with causally in the universe to try to change what's going to happen or to try to achieve what you want to achieve. The knowledge in your head informs you about the universe of choices that you have ahead of you. It tells you what you could possibly achieve. It tells you the ways to achieve it, the means. So if you imagine someone baking a cake, right, using their grandma's recipe. If I'm going to bake this cake, I need to have the sole right to use certain scarce resources, like the mixing bowl and the spoon and the eggs and the and the dough, whatever. But the recipe that guides my hands to make this cake could be used by someone else at the same time. So this is why we have property rights. We have property rights in the things that cannot be used by more than one person at the same time, like the mixing bowl or the spoon. If someone takes my bowl from me and my spoon, I can't make the cake. But if someone else has their own bowl and their own spoon and their own ingredients and their own oven and their own kitchen, etc., and their own body, but they're using my grandma's recipe to make the cake, that doesn't prevent me from making the cake. We can both use the recipe at the same time. So we have to think clearly about the role of knowledge and the role of scarce resources as it relates to human action. Okay. And this is why there's property rights in resources. This is why property rights in knowledge makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, so that actually dealt with my first question, what I was going to get into, but Darian wants to say something.
Okay, well, I just want to point out that we only have a few minutes left on this segment, so let's get in as much as we can here.
All right,
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, he had already hit on this and said, no, the similarity between IP and other types of property. This is where the question was going. So I've heard some ANSOCs, that is socialist anarchist, and ANCOMs, as communist anarchists, say that just as IP is simply a state-enforced social construction that prevents people from being free to do what they want, regular property works that same way. And so, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard this argument from ANSOCs and ANCOMs about like seeing the light on IP, that you should also see the light on regular property, that property is illegitimate, and that it's a social construction that does away with liberty. And if you want to be truly libertarian, you have to do away with this concept of property.
Yes, I've heard that before, and I think that so my view is this. I'm a Rothbardian I won't say anarcho-capitalist, I'll say anarcho-libertarian. And I mean, look, everyone has a theory of property rights.
Right.
Property rights just means who you think has the right to control a given scarce resource.
Even if you call it possession, it's still
right,
property.
Right. Now, if you think there's no right to, so I would think ownership is the right to possess. Possession is sort of like actual control. But if you want to move beyond a world of might makes right and, war of all against all, then we want to talk about who has the right to control these things. Mm-hmm. And every political system has a view of this, communism, social democracy, whatever. They all, if you point to a given scarce resource, like a factory or a piece of land or whatever, they will have an answer for you about who gets to control it, whether it's the Politburo or the collective, or the voters in democracy, or the union, or the homesteader, or whatever. They all have an answer. And that is their property rights theory. So no one is against property rights. Everyone has a different view of how to assign property rights. The libertarian view is what is unique against all the others. What we say is you should assign the property right to the person who has the best claim to or connection to it, because our goal is to try to find a way that humans can live together in society and live productively and peacefully and cooperatively, and that we can use these resources as means to action without having physical violence or conflict over them, which is wasteful and destructive and harmful. Okay? So if you want to be able to use resources constructively, you have to know who has the right to use it. That's all. And the only way to do that is to assign that resource to the person with the best and most objective and fair claim to it. And the libertarian answer is that is the person who had the first claim to it. The homesteader, for example, or whoever he gave the property to. Because otherwise, a latecomer or someone who came later could claim it. So, of course, the Lockean libertarian idea comes out of this idea of reducing conflict, finding a peaceful way to live among each other.
All right. Yes. See, I can imagine them continuing saying, like, well, as you've admitted, the justification for the property rights, or what we're looking for in the end, is a way that human beings can live together, use the scarce resources that make up existence and the matter of reality, and have a non-conflicting, non-violent interactions with one another. So it's in order to make peace with one another. And if things go beyond that, then probably there might be a conflict. So they would say that opening the gate saying that property is legitimate would make it in such a way that you could legitimize massive accumulation or unlimited accumulation. And so once you've given that that gateway, then someone else could simply could have possession over everything, while other people have possessions over nothing, and you could be legitimized. But that would be conflict between people.
I mean, if somebody's going to be a tyrant, they don't need a technicality to do it. They're not going to say, "Oh,
Right.
you
But
left me this tiny loophole. Now I'm going to use it to rule you." I mean,
but should it be
there are other.
should anybody respect it, though? I mean, if we're going to start from first principles and use that kind of thing, we'd have to be on the side of the person who's the massive accumulator, or like someone who bought land in a circle around somebody else, or homesteaded land in a circle around somebody else.
So let me just mention a couple of things. In a way, I reject the confusions. It's like a false dichotomy that's accepted by both the right and the left, right? So the right tends to accept that property right is legitimate, but that IP is a type of property right. So their mistake is assuming that IP is a type of property right. And the left rejects IP because they reject property in general. And their mistake is rejecting property in general. Now, I will say that I appreciate some of the reasons that they are skeptical of or hostile to property because partly it's a semantic debate, right? They are objecting to the historical
Uses.
process by which property has been assigned in part by the state. Now, my personal view is that, and this is a little bit off the IP topic, but it's the Rothbardian view that, look, if we dissolve the state tomorrow, would we find a guy that's worth $5 million and has a big house and take his house and distribute it equitably among everyone, or would we say, look, as long as you've been using it peacefully, it's a resource and you've acquired it without collaboration with the state to steal it from someone else, I would say let holdings be, let people have what they have and let it go from there. Now, for the state and for people that are in close collaboration with the state, that's a different matter. I would look at that as a common resource that can be redistributed or distributed to claimants with a restitution claim, everyone who's a victim of the state. Now, everyone's going to get 1 cent on the dollar or less, but still, just distribute it, fine. Or by an auction or whatever method, I don't care. But some things are not owned by the state. The public forests, let them be homesteaded or auction them off. That's fine. But a house that I own, that I paid for, and that the government, recognized my title to, I would say let that owner maintain ownership of that house. So in that respect, I would not go with the left libertarian hostility towards property and just jettison everything.
Okay. All right. Should I continue with my series of questions, or should you want to jump in
we've
here?
We've got to wrap this up. So,
okay.
Stefan, thanks a lot for being on with us, and it was a great talk with you. Is there anything that you want to bring up to our listeners for where they can go for more information, or anything you want to promote while you're on the air?
Well, I would just say I'm giving I'm teaching a Mises Academy course right now on libertarian legal theory, and I will be teaching the second version of my intellectual property course in March. So if you're interested in the Mises Academy courses on these or related topics, you can go to academy.mises.org.
And that's Mises is MISES, correct?
Correct.
All right, and you mentioned the Center for the Study of Innovative Freedom earlier also. That's
Yes, you can find some of my IP-related rantings and commentary at c4saf.org.
Okay.
And I will be in New York on Friday for a debate at NYU Law School. I think it will be YouTube later, though. I don't think it's going to be live. So that's what I have going on right now.
Oh, interesting.
okay.
So that's this Friday. Is it free admission, or how's it?
It is free, actually. If you email me, I'll hook you up with it. It's at NYU School of Law, and it's a intellectual property panel by a bunch of law professors, but they have agreed to let me give my libertarian take on things. I'm the only non-law professor on the panel. Several of my friends are showing up already, Nina Paley and her crew and some of my other friends. If you Actually, it's on my blog somewhere, StefanKinsella.com. I have an entry about it, StefanKinsella.com, and it's also at C4SIF.com. Or if you email me, I can get you an invitation if you want to attend in New York City on Friday at like 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right. So I have to get you up against Gene Epstein one of these days. So it'll be an interesting thing to have you on there.
I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Stefan. And we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to have more Thinking Liberty, so stay tuned.
Okay.
I want to tell you a story about a little man, if I can, a gnome named Grimble Grumble, and little gnomes stay in their homes, eating, sleeping, drinking their wine. He wore a scarlet tunic, a blue-green hood, it looked quite good. He had a big adventure amidst the grass, fresh air at last, whining, dining, biding his time. And then one day, hooray, another way for gnomes to say, look at the sky, look at the river, isn't it good? Look at the sky, look at the river, isn't it good? Winding, finding places to go. And then one day, hooray, another way for gnomes to say,
Anyway.
Oh, well, Bio wasn't using it, though.
I deserve it because I didn't say IP freely at all while Stefan was on here.
I love it, though. I mean, he's Stefan's a great guy. I mean, he's got obviously a very firm basis in this, and he can speak intelligently about a lot of different aspects of it. I think it's good. We got to get him on here again, definitely, to talk some more.
Yep.
All right, so Bosco, you said you got some books?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I have two interesting things happen to me today. One, I had a catastrophic book bag failure in the middle of the day. So I actually had to go out and purchase another book bag because you pretty much can't do your job as a teacher unless you have a bag to carry crap around in.
Wow.
And my bag failed to the point that duct tape couldn't even fix it.
What about your office? Like you could just put things
in... Public schools don't have offices.
Okay, what about your classroom?
I share a closet with 5 other people. This is what I do.
Five
other people. And I sit at a little cabinet where there's no room for my legs underneath. So I sit sideways, and then I twist my body and I type stuff.
So would education be improved if we gave a contractor $5 million to build an extra closet for you?
An extra closet? Probably not much. It'd probably just make people lazy. But anyway, so I bought this shiny new book bag. All right, so I got this
Pretty
book
nice
bag.
looking.
Yeah, nobody can see it, but it's blue. And inside it are 2 books that I got in the mail. So you guys want to try to guess what's in there? I'll give you each a guess. How's that sound?
Okay, you got some sort of marble notebook in there?
Okay, there's your guess. What's yours, Darian?
I'm going to go for a Proudhon book.
A Proudhon book? Does Bile have a guess, or he doesn't care? He's like, it's another stupid game. All right, so the first book is How Children Fail by John Holt. All right. Anybody heard of this book?
I have not.
You have not heard of this book. Okay,
I've heard of this book.
All right, there you go. It's apparently a relatively popular book, popular enough that you can get it for $2 used. All right, and it says best-selling book that tells why bright children do so badly in school has already become a classic. John Holt, kind of a interesting character in the unschooling movement and all that other stuff going on. And I got this as a result of an argument I was having with a coworker. And
Is John Holt still alive?
I don't know if he's still alive. You got me. Book looks pretty old.
Yeah, it does. That's why I asked.
The other one, even older, is Summerhill, A Radical Approach to Child Rearing by A.S. Neal. Anybody ever heard of that guy?
You're rearing a child?
Rearing a Child, yes.
Yes. A.S. Neal, you say?
Yes, I did.
No, I don't know that one.
Consequently, by the way, his last name is the same as my middle name.
Huh, interesting.
Good to know.
John Holt died in 1985.
Oh, okay. There you go. So you missed it by a few years.
All right.
I mean, you kind of overlapped him a little, I guess.
But going the libertarian education route, or an option in libertarian education.
All right. So your
let's do
assignment
books.
is to read those books and then get someone as a guest on that you can discuss this with.
I don't think you'd want this guy as a guest. He's the kind of person who believes that the more words you fit into your response, the firmer your argument. So when I discuss things with him, it tends to be me sitting there for 20 minutes. And then I go, okay, well, I wrote down the following things you said that I disagree with. This because of this. This because of this. This because of this. Then you repeated yourself a few times, and then this, and then this.
I meant someone on like free schooling and things like that. Not,
Oh, okay. We could probably track somebody down like that. The interesting
you
thing.
can get Gatto on here if you want.
Yeah, that's true. We probably could get him. Did I tell you I saw him speak at Rutgers, and I actually drug a coworker who was living there near there with me at the time.
Drug a coworker?
Yes, I drugged him and brought him there.
That's
Now,
what it sounded like. That's exactly what you said.
so we went to see Gatto, and Gatto gave his little, or he said he wasn't going to give his spiel. He said he's going to talk about whatever the heck we want to hear about. So people asked him questions until 1 a.m. when they closed down the room, and they were like, Gatto, you need to leave. And he's like, okay, I can't answer questions anymore. And then we split. So it was really just like this question and answer session with him for a long time. I actually I had one of his books done as a book study for professional development, which was kind of interesting. So I managed to get a bunch of teachers to read that book and give their comments on it. The book was A Different Kind of Teacher, which is a collection of essays.
How'd that go?
Well, the only reason I could get away with it is because it's called A Different Kind of Teacher as opposed to like Weapons of Mass Instruction.
How about
or,
the 7-lesson school teacher?
What was that?
How about the 7-lesson school teacher?
That probably would have gotten by too, just because the title's benign. All they ever do is they check the titles on these things. So I got it.
Bring a
with
gun
the-
to school day. Probably not. Gonna
Yeah,
work
bring on
out.
to school day. Not going to cut it. Not at all. Not in the slightest.
You're a bad man, and so we can't have you do this.
But anyway, I got some more books about this interesting thing because people looked at me. I had not a department meeting. I had a department meeting today. Sorry, not a faculty meeting. And they were talking about the ID enforcement policy and stuff like that and why it needs to be enforced. And the question was, it's like, well, why do you think students don't wear their IDs?
Huh.
And my response was, I don't think they feel that it's important to wear their IDs. And I think if you could convince the students that it was important that they wear their IDs, then they would wear their IDs. And they said, well, how do you think you should do that? And I said, well, we should have a rules committee. And they're like, yeah, we already have that. And I was like, and it should be, 50% teachers and it should be 50% students. And they freaked out. They're like, you can't have students on the rules committee. I was like, why not? They're the ones who have to, according to you, have to follow the rules. So they should have a say in the rules committee. And nobody liked that.
There's no representation here.
Apparently not. People thought it was a bad idea.
We're simply talking about subjects, and these subjects simply need to listen to their masters and betters, and they will succeed. They will prosper.
I give people ample opportunity. I'm like, please, tell me why it's so important that people wear their IDs.
Because safety,
Well,
9/11, Columbine. That's all they're gonna say.
That's it.
There's gonna be a few more like articles thrown in there, but that's basically what they're gonna say.
People shout that stuff all the time, and I'm like, well, that's awesome. I appreciate your concern. Can you show me statistics or things like that? And nobody wants to do any of the footwork with coming up with statistics.
I am aware of 9/11.
Well,
Are you
if
now?
you look at the statistics, you look at the people who've looked into this stuff. Like, let's say you're like me and you got a big problem with lockdown drills, and you look into the research. The people who've done most of the research is the Secret Service, and basically the conclusion they've come to is what really matters is what you do before the incident and what you do in the first 8 minutes of the incident, and the cops really don't play much of a big role. So it's like, okay, that seems to be a pretty stark case against the lockdown drill idea. as come up with by these people who've researched it. But people don't really like research; they like FUD.
Research.
I don't want to look
just
again.
give me enough to pass. That's all.
Yeah,
Tell me what the answer is.
yeah. My thought on when we started having or supposed to wear IDs in high school was this is just them conditioning people to control us better, to show IDs on command, to be tagged like cattle.
I even have more respect for the teachers who just
Did you bring a
outright
gun to school?
say that. If they're like, well, I follow the behaviorist model of changing people's actions, and I think that IDs are one way that I could make them comply, and if they comply on little things, they'll comply on the big things.
About a bell?
Yeah, exactly, or a bill. I have more respect for the teachers who say that, because I'm like, all right, well, you may be evil, but at least you're honest.
Maybe explicitly evil.
Exactly. As opposed to the other people who are like, well, they told us safety, so safety. And it's like, come on, look into it.
They told us.
They told us safety. The safety guy said safety. So safety is the safety thing.
You go. Says your safety is all that's
Safety, safety, safety. Safety, 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 safety. Think of the children.
Children 9/11. Oh wait, so
If
that's
the
what's going on in
authorities know everything about you and you know nothing about them, that's how to keep things stable. Have this power structure, right?
And that's true, yeah.
That's nothing says stability like some people being forced to do things, and that doesn't create conflict or anything. Not an adversarial relationship in
No.
every single manner.
That thing kills me the absolute most. Like, I really wish I could just put little subtext in what teachers are saying. Teachers like, well, I don't understand, and then I would insert, when we basically force students to do things and we react with them in an authoritarian manner and we show them that force is the only way to do things, and then I'd end my little insert there, and the teacher would continue saying why the students are so bitter and angry. It's like teachers like, I don't understand why the students are so violent. It's like, because you're violent to them all the time. Like,
Because the entire system they're in is based on them being forced to be there.
Dude, no one sees the violent inherent in the system.
apparently, like, I swear to God, I have seen people in the hallways screaming at a student who's having an argument with another student, going, this is not how you solve your problems. You do not solve your problems by screaming in the hallway. If you persist, I will take you down to ISS. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you should model your method of conflict resolution, if you're going to go for it.
You saying practice what you preach there?
I'm saying modeling. It's a method of instruction.
So you're telling me this,
Instruction.
telling me that, and you say there's a lesson that you're going to teach, but practice on them.
You got to show people.
All right, so moving on to some other topics here. Egypt. According to a Wall Street Journal article, the secret rally that sparked an uprising, Egyptian protest organizers outsmarted police at the beginning of the uprisings, partly by declaring 20 public rally points as well as one secret rally point. Essentially, the cops knew where all these, where the 20 rally points were, and a lot of people gathered there, and they started trying to march towards the square, and there were riot cops all over. But the 21st, only a handful of people knew about it. They gathered. They started rallying, started being rowdy, and there were no cops around, so they started marching towards the square. And since more people were into the uprising, they joined them. And that's according to this article in the Wall Street Journal, which is interesting.
Huh. Well, that certainly is very interesting. I saw something in the New York Times today. In fact, I didn't really see it. I looked over somebody's shoulder while they were reading it on their phone,
And he made heavy breathing noises while he was doing
It's
it.
like he didn't mind so much. He said latest updates on the Middle Eastern uprisings, and so it looks like there's a lot more focus on Iran at the moment. And I don't know who has decided to put the focus on Iran, whether it's really Iran's actually doing something, or the Iranian people are doing something against the Iranian regime, or it's the government trying to refocus their efforts on Iran by putting this out in the media that there's this much stuff happening in Iran as well. So it could be a combination of things. I don't know. But that seems to be a big push right now.
Interesting. What creeped me out about the article Darian's talking about a little bit is you get this impression that even when it comes to things like protests and things that look like mass movements of people, it's actually organized and coordinated by a small handful of people who are looking to manipulate the protest such that they end up with their desired outcome. So they plan this thing out, and they said, public protests here, and then we are going to try to gain the support of the following disaffected people in this particular region as a means to continue our protests, which we can then march and do this with. Which, I don't know, I always get kind of creeped out when I hear about that.
I didn't really see it as that manipulative. I mean, it was deceptive because the cops weren't going to let them do anything openly. But I didn't really see it as particularly manipulative. I mean, people didn't like the regime, and they were happy to protest and happy to see someone else taking the risk for organizing it, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, they said specifically that they're going to have to gain the support of this section of poor people that you didn't see in the other parts of the protest. It reminds me when you read things by the SDS saying that they're going to have to gain the support of the Panthers if they ever want to actually affect any major change. And it always just kind of has this undertone like they don't. If you're trying to use somebody as a pawn to get something you want, then you don't really recognize their plight, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I suppose. Now, speaking of the SDS, I was around their counter-organization, the YAF, recently. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the YAF has come out and condemned Ron Paul for being a winner at CPAC, and so it was an interesting. I was at CPAC this past weekend too, so that was something to talk about.
What were you doing there?
Pledging my allegiance to the Republican Party, apparently. No, just kidding. So, there's a lot more anarchists and left libertarians down there now, so it's something very
Why?
strange going on over there.
I don't really understand the Conservative Political Action Conference, like what possible value that would have besides disrupting it and driving people into disarray.
Yeah, it's exactly true, and that's what we're here for. Where we were there for. So we've gone down en masse, the actual Liberty supporters who were there. So that's a confluence of, say, Young Americans for Liberty, Students for Liberty, Campaign for Liberty, and
Liberty,
and Liberty, and Future Freedom Foundation, Independent Institute, and anybody else who's out there who has a little thing. I think even GOA might have been over there because I saw that dude, and. So all of us there, we keep having a more and more massive presence of this thing. We did so well last year that the bigots were offended at our presence. They were just saying, no, we can't have these people there. We can't have these people turning our conservative political thing into a liberal leftist type of thing with tolerance of homosexuals and their behavior and tolerance of drug users and their dissent in our drug war and our terror war and all these things. And so a lot of them decided they simply weren't going to show up. They said, no, we're not going to come to CPAC then, because it's our protest. We're boycotting this event until you become more conservative again.
Okay.
And so they have pretty much ceded the field. They were gone, and we came out in force, and we were the dominant numbers there easily. So Ron Paul winning easily over Mitt Romney and anybody else who was there.
Yeah, I read a headline about how the dirty, unwashed libertarians, stalked that straw poll. How much he cheated.
Yeah, it means the spammers are there in real life. So, we found out. And Johnson, of course, Gary Johnson got number 3. So Ron Paul number 1 with 30%, and it was such an easy win. It's kind of amazing. Ron Paul's retinue, I'm going to say, he has so many people there that they were able to pack the ballrooms that they're speaking at, and so you'll see 95% Ron Paul supporters are cheering their asses off whenever Ron's up there and saying something. He's usually saying something pretty amazing, and one of the other big events that's going to be major history, not just the major history, this is the shaping of the American political scene now that bigots no longer have pretty much a place in a lot of political outlets, that they simply have nothing now. They don't have a place in a Democratic organization. They don't have a place in a Republican organization. They will simply go off into the shadows somewhere like segregationists of old. And this seems to be the end of it.
What if they go like back to their roots and fire up a Klan rally or something like that?
But let them, that'll be even more interesting. I'd like to see them reveal themselves for who they are. And, we can round them up. We could, I'll get a lot of nanomachines and round up those Klansmen.
You know who has an
bullets?
interesting take on the word conservatives? Actually, John Taylor Gatto, and
Oh.
I heard him talk about it at length. And he's like, "Yeah, I stopped being conservative when they kind of forgot what the word conservative meant." He's like, "If you look it up in the dictionary, it's like." It's not foreign empire. That's like the exact opposite of what conservative means.
It's like he ran into the Conservative Party in New York. So I was like, whatever that means.
Well, it's like, what are you trying to conserve, though? I mean,
Exactly.
the status
Energy.
quo, the tradition,
They're like the Green Party.
Yeah, see, that's-
conservation of energy party.
in England, that's what the Conservatives have done. They used to have the Conservative symbol, which was a hand with a torch, symbolizing liberty and the Promethean knowledge
arson.
and all that, and arson, of course.
Well, that goes along with liberty.
And so, but now their symbol is a tree. Is a green tree. That's the conservative symbol now, because obviously they're talking about the conservationist side of themselves, which makes a lot of sense now for philosophically. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to conserve things, and they have become more back to their roots of the old days conservatives. But either way, that's what we're seeing right now. So the other big story, of course, I'm saying first historical thing. The second historical thing is that Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld somehow got a Defender of the Constitution, Defender of Liberty award there at CPAC. And people booed Donald Rumsfeld for one. And then Dick Cheney was called up to give a talk on there. And since the room was already filled with Ron and Rand Paul supporters, people simply walked out of the room. There was no support for this man. So even at CPAC, in the middle of Washington, D.C., someone like Dick Cheney can't even hold an audience together.
See, I would be kind of nervous though, because Dick Cheney, he'll just kill you.
That's
like
someone's going to accidentally tap him in the chest, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm saying like Dick Cheney. There's a good chance I would be more scared with Dick Cheney than in any like open carry event that I have ever been to, because I think Dick Cheney could shoot somebody and totally get away with it.
He's not a good shot.
Well, okay, yeah, he's not a good shot, but I also think he's like arch evil.
Yes, he is.
It's amazing how evil the guy is. He scares me.
I mean, Donald Rumsfeld is pretty up there, too. I mean, Rumsfeld is a lesser evil than Mr. Cheney, but Cheney is up there, and he can't even get any respect there, which is amazing. This is Washington. This is America. This is Washington D.C. with a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah, but it's
the
also-
Conservative Political Action Committee.
But it's also jam-packed with
Exactly.
Ron Paul people who
This
had
is-
subsidized tickets.
And this is what they need to understand, though. It's that these people are going to be there at CPAC, and this is probably representing what CPAC is from now until, say, the foreseeable future, until something actually
I mean,
happens.
it's good that making it so there's not a conducive environment for a lot of people to organize politically. That the infrastructure that was in place is now no longer theirs to use. So they would either have to start up something else or expend a lot of energy going after this other thing.
Yes.
That being said, I guess it's a good use of resources for libertarians who are kind of on the conservative end of things. Just because it's like we said, it undermines that specific evil power.
You're underestimating the evil though. Like, you got a bunch of Ron Paul people together. Dick Cheney will use his mind powers to open a wormhole, and he will kill.
Underestimate the power
Exactly.
of the dark side.
He'll kill everybody in the region, which could be good for the rest of us. There's a lot of innocent people that are going to die.
Oh, Dick.
He doesn't have that kind of power.
That's the kind of thing that gets you killed. Saying stuff like that on the interwebs radio.
Let him.
Right.
I want to see him. I want to see him come here. Maybe not here, but wherever.
Let's say that when I'm around.
Let's invite Dick Cheney to.
I tried to invite Obama to be on, but they never got back to me.
Yeah, eventually they'll get back to you.
Oh yeah, they'll knock on my door someday.
It's
Oh,
like, hey, we're
Bosco.
libertarian anarchists, and we're totally opposed to everything that you stand for and say that you are for. So, would you like to come and talk to us?
This is how we
yes, I
solve
would.
things, by talking it out.
Hey, I read that Obama, according to the Globe, which I was reading today while somebody was making my sandwich, is apparently addicted to stimulants. was their big
It's the
argument,
tax.
and that's why he's like losing so much weight.
Addicted to the Antichrist. Also,
No, I was thinking of getting
That'd
some
be a lot more
amphetamines
cooler.
myself. No, just for like in case I was going back to school.
You want to get your degree done in like a year?
I don't know, just get a big pack of amphetamines. Like, yeah, I need to just coast through this right now.
I took 30 years off the end of my life, got a degree in 1 year. It's cool.
Exactly.
that doesn't sound like a good investment.
Amphetamines? Well, what you're not on amphetamines right now?
You can't
Pretty
predict
high
the
time
future. so-
preference.
It's like you're in school, like everybody else is on that stuff.
Nah.
That's how they get through graduate school. At least like a quarter of them are doing it. Maybe not in your subject, but I mean like in other subjects.
In real subjects,
Yes.
the ones that matter,
All those
Like what?
like any of the science,
the non-communist ones.
the non-communist ones.
all those,
right.
all those
That's a
tweaked
reference to
out,
the Libertarian
history
Party
people.
video.
All right, so also on Egypt, there's an article on InfoShop News, an anarchist report from Egypt. It was pretty well written. It had a little bit of an insurrectionary anarchist, kind of shallowness to it, I think. But all in all, worthy read.
You know what's interesting? If you read the names attached to that letter, you know whose name's not on that letter? I'll give you a hint. It starts with D and it rhymes with Aryan Warden.
What are you talking about?
Your
Aryan-
name's not on the bottom of that letter.
Aryan
Ladder. I'm
warrior?
talking about an anarchist report from Egypt on
Oh,
InfoShop.
sorry. I thought
Yep.
you were talking about the C4SS
Yeah,
letter.
the C4SS, a Black Crescent letter.
Yeah, I didn't see it for a while.
You did-
So
yeah, I
now
figured
my name's on
figured
it.
you would have been on there.
Of course, there's a couple things in there I think could have been written differently, but
Yeah, they're trying
That's
to
how
do
it
it
goes.
as simple
I-
language as possible.
I
so
would like to see
translates.
what the Google Translate version says. It's
probably
like,
awful.
"Dear squids of the apocalypse, we want you to know that we love flowers."
Yeah, Google Translate not the best way to do things, but they're having actual humans look at it.
Yeah,
so-
there's like a big call for humans that can translate and humans that can speak different languages and stuff like that.
Should just call Dan Patrick. Maybe he could do it.
no, he took Farsi
Oh, well, have him do it anyway.
All right.
Put it in Farsi.
and then into the fuel tank of an airplane.
Oh wow, low blow.
All right, so again, what Bosco's talking about now is Center for a Stateless Society, C4SS.org. There's a feature on it, basically trying to get more anarchist oriented stuff into the Arabic language, especially with the situation going on in Egypt and other Middle Eastern countries, to try to get them away from a state solution and more on a people power anarchist solution.
That sounds like they've got a good expression of people power, so now would be a good time to be introduced to those ideas.
Yeah, and the with the InfoShop News article is saying that a lot of people they had the idea, what now? Because they didn't really. I mean, this is just from one article. I mean, but the idea that there was people powered and toppling the regime, but they're not exactly sure what comes next. The Democratic Republic is the default, so that's kind of what they're going for.
I read an interesting article actually talking about how you need to build counterpower and then you need to create a power vacuum. I forget
Was
who
it
wrote
an
it.
authority
but it was-
vacuum?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds like
I
a
think
bad
that
idea.
was it.
Power vacuums, authority vacuums. I don't know.
I'm sure Cheney's in on that. He knows how to create an authority vacuum. But actually, I
he's
really
a
like.
sucker, so
I
he may as
really like that article, Darian. That article tipped me over the edge. I ended up upping my monthly contribution after that.
Excellent.
Between that one and the one that the guy we had on last week, what was his name?
D'Amato.
D'Amato, yeah, wrote that reference Conquest of Bread. Between those two, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're doing it. They're doing okay.
You know what bugs me though is it doesn't show up on the little widget that they have that says, we've raised X amount of dollars of our goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up when you have the recurring payment thing.
That's because computers just haven't caught up with us yet.
Yeah.
True, but they take bitcoins.
And they certainly beat the hell out of humans at Jeopardy. So,
Yeah, did you see that?
of course I saw
Of
that.
course you saw that.
But did you see the article about Watson's mistakes?
Yeah.
And how they had to reshoot a section of the show because Watson had answered the answer. What is question the answer?
Yes,
Whatever.
yes, he provided the response.
But the problem was that Watson can't actually hear the responses of the humans, and so under normal circumstances, if someone answered incorrectly, but in a certain, had the adjectives or something to describe what was going on, someone fixed like the noun of the sentence, then that would be accepted because it's in the context of what someone got wrong. But since Watson doesn't know the context of other people's answers, in one case he actually answered the same way as wrong as someone else, and then in another case he answered and it was the correct topic, but he didn't put the right adjectives in to indicate what was going on. So they had to cut the show and redo it with him getting it wrong, because at first Alex Trebek allowed it to go through because as a human it would have had context, but in the scope of Watson it did not. So
yeah, they have a documentary that aired on PBS. It was right after Nova, I think. So Nova Science Now, the Nova, then they had that one, and they're talking about the IBM folks. I think may have produced this. And so they're showing Dave Ferrucci and all the other guys who were really responsible for creating Watson and putting this together over the last 3 years, and then interviewing Alex Trebek and showing how this was. And on the Jeopardy show, they're actually making reference to the documentary when you see it cut up. And I think another one came on tonight, so I'll have to torrent the episode tonight and see what happens. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be some very interesting future.
Whenever I hear about this sort of stuff, I always thinking that there's got to be groups out there taking this technology or the ideas from this technology and still working on the good old-fashioned Turing test, right? There's got to be people doing that somewhere.
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, in this regard, though, the Watson, from what I understand, is specifically designed for this type of scenario.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So
still not as good as a human.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But
yet.
no, we'll probably beat a human at trivia every time.
Wait till we get our computer co-host on the show. Then
He'll
we
be
know.
good. He'll be good at talking about trivial things.
Yes,
I was thinking we just hook up Dr. Spatzo.
Yeah, this is exactly what you'll talk
Dr.
about.
Spatzo.
Did you hear what those clowns
From
in Congress
Creative
did?
Labs.
What a bunch of clowns. It's like, how does he keep up with the times like that?
That'd be good. I really think it's too bad that you couldn't just hook a computer up to, like, with the same kind of interface, but to all of the internet, so that you end up with a computer that's like the worst memes and just awfulness. You try to talk to the computer, and the computer like brings up random things from lolcats and stuff like that.
Well, it's like that time in college when you hooked up MegaHal to a Instant Messenger and then trained the brain on all Nine Inch Nails lyrics, and it was the most depressed thing ever.
That was a neat plugin because you have the different MegaHal brains, and you could have it get training data over AIM, working with Biles AIM client. You could have it get training data from or talk to different people. So you could put two people on the same brain. So you take two people that hate each other and you both have them train the same MegaHal brain, and phrases that one person ends up using ends up coming across to the other person, and it was a good time. It was fun to watch.
Especially since you made it initiate conversations.
Oh yeah, I had an annoy mode, so you could just every 30 seconds it would prompt it with something random, and whatever the response was, it would spit that at the person. It was good. It was like automated trolling. Someday we will have computers good enough to troll like 20% of the population all at the same time.
We're going to have to get a troll for that.
A counter troll, dude. There's like the spam I'm getting on my blog and stuff. It's getting almost to the point where I'm like, oh, that almost sounds like an actual person would have written that. But then it's like the website is like penis enlargement info.
Oh, I send you those.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's so real.
It's a hint.
It's a hint.
Okay, so
We got Zach Fix commenting in the chat room saying we have Darren for that, for trolling the people.
Oh, there you go.
A time cube computer.
Yes, it says, no, keep honking. I'm reloading. That's what it says.
Time cube. So, speaking of memes, have you seen the Bill O'Reilly?
Oh yes,
meme?
yeah. It's like
yes.
no, marijuana's still illegal. You can't explain that.
People pay me to talk. You can't explain
You
that.
can't explain that.
So, for those of you who don't know, Bill O'Reilly had some segment where he was talking about how tides prove the existence of God.
He does this multiple times whenever he talks to disbelievers or things like that, and he says the reason he believes, the tides come in, the tides go out. You can't explain that. So God did that.
So when someone tries to explain it through science, he had this response video, which I saw from a Colbert clip that was on YouTube, and he's basically like,
Dumbest
okay, sure, he's like trying to be really dismissive. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not impressed. Like, okay, there's a moon.
Yeah.
Where did the moon come from?
Yeah.
The moon goes up, the sun goes down. There's never a misstep in communication. Like, I forget the exact phrase, but it was like in
nobody else
communication.
has a moon. Like Mars doesn't have a moon. It's like, what are you talking about?
That's what, I think my favorite part though was the lapse in communication. I forget exact what word was like basically a lapse in communication. Like I'm just picturing like in Bill O'Reilly's mind, the sun has this big smiley face on it, like in a 3-year-old's drawing, and it's like talking to the moon, like, okay, time to come up now.
Oh man, yeah. I was actually looking for. I was on Meme Generator. I was looking for random crap to put up in the classroom.
Yeah.
And there's some really good ones. My personal favorite was a picture of Bill Nye, and it just said, "Have trouble with science? You should try religion." And I'm like, oh, want to put that up so bad, can't put it up.
Can't put that
So
up.
I had to settle for a big picture of Cthulhu for president that I put up because I actually gave them Cthulhu and a problem on one of their quizzes, and they're like, "How do you say this?" I'm like, "You don't know who Cthulhu is?
No.
It's going to be even worse for you then."
Dude, we're post Gen X, Gen Y kind of things. That's who you're talking to. Now. They have
true.
no idea what this stuff is.
That's
So
very
like,
true.
but aren't you?
Damn kids these
Isn't
days.
Cthulhu? He was not supposed to be named, so maybe.
Maybe they're
maybe you
just
should just-
strict adherents. One of the funniest things I saw happen in class regarding the internet was I was trying to explain to this girl what trolling was, and she did not get it.
Oh, boy.
And then in real life, she proceeded to get trolled by like 8 people at once, and she like totally took the bait. So it's like this one guy says to her, "It's like, well, it's like if I told you that I hate all disabled people and they should die," and her response was, "Why do you hate disabled people?" I'm like, "Oh no, don't do this."
And
And she just
so it
she just
begins.
kept going for it and going for it. And you know, I'm a troll at heart, so I didn't stop
Oh.
them. I was like, okay, we can see how far this goes. This is fine with me. And she's like, "Wow, you're really bad people." It's like, no, that's the wrong response. You're just feeding them.
Yeah. Oh, in CPAC, there's a whole lot of weed at CPAC. So if you feel like it's just way too much, this is what I put up in my Twitter feed, and of course Bosco responds to this. But yeah, there really was too much. It's like just wow, put that away.
You just need to go get Cheney.
Yeah, he would heal from that. That's the problem. We don't want that. So give him cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
You
Have
could
more
always lace.
cigarettes.
You could always lace his with like PCP.
Okay, we're getting
Maybe-
American Spirit on PCP.
Him on
so-
PCP would be interesting.
Maybe all of your bigots that left will just not show up to CPAC and just call the cops on everybody.
Well, we'll
And
see. how
maybe
that goes.
CPAC will just get raided.
The cops are just gonna get high with us. That's how it always happens, right?
Yes, that's totally how it goes down.
So now we will go to the Pentagon. We'll form a circle around it, it'll
Levitate it.
and then the cops will all get high with all of us, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah.
Okay then. So we've only got a few minutes left. Anything else we want to get up there? I think there's donations business to
Still
get down
talking
to.
about that?
Donations.
Yes.
The best nation is donation.
There you go.
I stole Tennyson's line.
That's my only line. I can be quiet. Just kidding. But yeah, next week I don't even know if I'm going to be here. That's the question. Because
in this state.
Yeah, in this state. I mean, I'm going back to D.C. this weekend for the International Students for Liberty Conference, so it should be pretty good. And then I'm going to... getting here is a whole hell of a challenge, by the way.
It can be tough.
I
Yeah.
know. So
I agree with you there.
yeah, it's probably going to cost like $40 to get here and back, so... Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
From where?
From East Fishkill.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, that's terrible. See,
It
this is
certainly
why you should donate so Tennyson can come here more.
So
And
we
he
can get
doesn't have to
Tennyson.
phone in.
We can get Tennyson that ornithopter that he's always wanted. Because
I'd rather
flying
the
an
still
ornithopter right next to Manhattan, there'd be no problem with that.
Just get me a still
Nobody's
suit.
gonna harass
That's
you.
all I want. Still suit instead of the ornithopter. And
Dude, if you came in here riding a sandworm, you would be my hero.
Yes, I'd be the-
Especially if it like blew through the wall and ate Darien or something like that.
yeah, I'm the Quizatodorock there. Yeah. But
We've got a
We got a
tech
couple minutes?
news. Where is it? Question.
oh, that's
We had some tech news. We were
Tech
talking about
news.
robots and
We were.
Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Robots in Jeopardy.
all right. Let me go find some
Robo
tech
Jeopardy.
news real
Yeah,
quick.
but about donations, if you go to thinkingliberty.net/donate, we use the money to advertise and whatnot. And if Tennyson moves away from or when he moves away from us,
Right.
can help with setting him up if he wants to, like Skype in.
He could be a mobile broadcaster for when the state takes this one down. They will not find Tennyson.
I'll be like that Sean Hannity from the future kind of thing. Have you seen that comic? That
No.
crazy comic?
Sean
Where it's
Hannity from the future.
Yeah, it was like, what if Al Gore had won instead of George W. Bush, and then the 9/11 attacks happened, and then you see all of a sudden Osama bin Laden's at the UN shaking hands with people. So Sean Hannity is a cyborg.
Where did you find this?
It's on the internet. You can find it. Just look for any of those keywords. You will find it.
And what keywords?
You'll find it right away.
Yes. So look for the things that I just said, and that'll be it. But
Speaking of donations, Bitcoin's trading at over $1 now.
that's pretty
So
good.
our Bitcoin donations have gone up in value.
Yeah. All right. I'm thinking of doing on the scene report. So if I go to California, which I might, and I probably will, I'll go see some people in Cali, interview them, and hopefully really good quality audio, and then send that over here.
That sounds excellent.
And then we don't have to do anything. We'll just
Exactly.
play your stuff during the broadcast.
We'll just automate it.
Yeah, I'm going to have questions from all of you then, so I'll tell you who the guest is, and it's like, okay, this is what it's going to be.
We'll actually get 2 turntables set up, and we will take what you record and we'll put it on wax, and we will actually, play the stuff and loop it and mess around with it
Awesome.
live on the show. And we've never done that before, so it will be awful, and we may end up destroying the things we use.
Well,
Well, that sounds like a good idea then.
And
the
that's
name
why
of
you should
free-
donate, 'cause it's going to cost us hundreds of dollars to set that up.
All right. So, again, you're listening to thinkingliberty.net. Check out all our archives, our podcasts, our contacts, all that good stuff at thinkingliberty.net. And we hope you go out there and be free. Good night.
yes.
Carry me, caravan, take me away. Take me to Portugal, take me to Spain. Andalusia with fields full of grain. I have to see you again and again. Take me, Spanish caravan. Yes, I know you can. Rain winds my galley, it's lost in the sea. I know where treasure is waiting for me. Silver and gold in the mountains of Spain. I have to see you again and again. Take me, Spanish caravan. Yes, I know.